Hello, happy day. Start of the week.
I'm not ready.
We're never ready. Boo to Mondays. I used to not care about them, but now, I kind of...
Mondays are hard.
Yeah.
But
we're here to entertain you. And give you some thoughtful topics this week. So we read my first ever parenting book. This is so awkward. I read the right book this time.
Which I got a lot to say about this book.
So buckle up, because there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Happy I read the first book, or happy I read the right book. Vanessa's been able to think on it for, a couple weeks now. She's gonna first read you out the chapters, and then
we're just gonna talk about each chapter kinda. So the first chapter is the big picture, starting sooner, lasting longer, meaning puberty is starting sooner than it did in the past. Yes, younger than it did in the past.
They say the first sign of puberty is a door slamming, and I was like, oh great, all three of my kids are in it then.
Yes, see, well, yeah, that's what made me think of Peyton and her emotions and everything else, and to think that my 7-year-old is already starting puberty is kind of crazy to me.
In the book, they say two main points kind of is treat them the age that they are, not the way they look. And I feel like because it's two girls, and in the Audible book, the one is reading certain parts and the other is reading certain parts, because one of the authors is a doctor and one of them is a puberty specialist. So they go back and forth kind of in the Audible.
Yeah.
When she said it's because they're starting puberty sooner doesn't mean they're wanting sex sooner, I was like, thank God, hallelujah, oh my freaking Lord. That's the best news she could have said. Because when they're talking about how young, they were talking about 5-year-olds getting, or was it 6-year-olds or whatever, starting to get hair and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my gosh. That means I could literally have all three in puberty already. And I was like,
Yeah, it's crazy.
But this book was great. It was a huge, huge, huge eye-opener.
Yeah, it really was. Kind of scares me a little bit.
Yeah.
But we'll get through that. So that's chapter 1. Chapter 2, the other big picture, how to talk about all of it. Mm-hmm. So just learning how to talk to your children, because knowledge is power. I think a lot of people try to hide puberty and the things that kids are going through. It doesn't, until I read this book, I didn't really realize, what internally the kids could be going through. Just, not knowing what's happening to their bodies and why they're feeling certain things, and just creating that culture where your kids can come to you if they have any questions was a huge eye-opener for me.
And in the chapters, they go through basically what's chemically happening in the body, in the brain, the parts of the brain that are being newly turned on, I guess. Newly, starting, the new chemistry of it. And then it talks about how it was 30 years ago versus how it is now. Yeah. And then it talks about how do you talk about it, examples on what to say to your kids, which I think literally every single parent should go buy this book, if it's just not to read how to talk about it.
Yeah.
It says we're going to mess things up. We're going to have to redo conversations. She says you can always ask for an do-over. I was going to say overdue. You can always tell your kids. She gives an example. Her son asked a question. She blurted out an answer a little while later after going through the morning routine. Yeah. She rethinks it and needs to rehash it. Yeah. And I love, love, love that example, because, on this podcast, we're trying to do our best, be our best.
Yes.
And right there, the whole book giving you permission to ask for a do-over. She said, what you do is you explain why and you promise to reconsider. Love that. I needed to hear that.
Yeah.
And I think every single one of you probably needs to hear that. Again, she also says stuff like, it's not one talk, it's not the talk, it's multiple talks.
Multiple talks. Yes.
And I loved that too. And in the book, they're breaking it down age appropriately, when to start it, how to start it. I freaking loved it. Yeah. Loved it.
And I like the science that they, that they bring into it too. There's a few chapters that I think I'm going to read with Sawyer, just because, and then that will help out like conversations, and then we can talk about it.
I was coming home sharing stuff with Josh, sharing a lot of stuff with Brooklyn. I also told her, I think it's later on in my notes that I wrote down, going for a road trip or walking when you're side to side and not looking at each other. So I said to Brooklyn, you can come to me and ask to go on a drive at any point in time, and things will be like less awkward if you never ever need to ask me a sticky question or tell me a sticky situation. That way we're not staring at each other having these awkward talks, because it's kind of just as awkward for me as it is for you. And so I've already broke that down for her just, this week, and I love it. She's totally open for it. She agreed. Walking and driving less awkward than
I love it.
Face to face. So I was happy that this book could bring that to light for me, because that was a good aha moment.
Yeah. And I think I feel like we have a lot of conversations.
Yeah.
But this book just really opened up how many more conversations that I need to have. But yeah, so I'm the next chapter, right?
I think.
All right. So chapter 3 was breasts, boobs, and butts. So I don't remember this stage of like my puberty. Like, I don't remember breast buds. So like, obviously I know it happens, but like reading it, I was like, yeah, like.
So I have Brooklyn's permission to share what we recently went through, because in the book it says, like, do not panic if one starts developing before the other. You don't need to think it's cancer. Like, and literally all of the things that they were saying in the book were thoughts that I just had a year and a half, 2 years ago. So I'm just going to lay the story kind of out there. Like, I feel like right now is the best kind of time to just...
Yeah, because that was my only note, was the fear of breast cancer.
Yeah, so basically, one day, Brooklyn came up to me and said she had a lump, and it was like, I don't know if it was directly under her nipple or like kind of next to it or whatever. And I was like, probably a mosquito bite, a spider bite, something, right?
Yeah.
The next day, she's like coming up to me saying that it's hurting, like she has, and it's on one side, not both. And so I, a little bit more, I don't remember if I offered ice or heat or what, drink more water, like we always say. And then, she was kind of, agitated about it. I called my one aunt and I was like, oh my gosh, breast cancer, like, does it hurt? Like, how young? So then my aunt's Googling, I'm Googling. My aunt's like, usually cancer doesn't hurt, sweetie. And I'm like, still panicking and freaking out, because now it's kind of getting larger. And I asked Brooklyn her permission to kind of push on it and touch it, and it was kind of sore and tender, and then sometimes itchy, so we're checking on it multiple times throughout the day.
The itch, I remember that.
See, I itty bitty titty committee until I breastfed, dude. I was like,
still, no, like when they're growing, and I remember that as a child. I
had no memory. So my aunt was trying to think, I'm trying to think. We're not remembering the age, anything like that. I love that.
Two women.
So then, about it. I hang up with her, and maybe a couple hours later, maybe the next day, I call my other aunt who's a nurse, because I'm asking Josh about it. He's like, I don't know. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Like, I think Josh was thinking mosquito bite.
Yeah.
I'm full-blown panic mode. And so I call my aunt who's a nurse, and I was like, what do we think this is? Like, cancer? Where I was dead set. What would she have, like, 8-year-old had cancer? I was crazy. Literally crying about it. Full-blown. I wasn't crying about it in front of her. I was trying to be cool, calm, and collect in front of her, because I don't want to ever, like, add my anxieties onto my kids. So I try really, really hard as a mom with mental health to not project. But she kept coming to me with the itchiness and stuff. So, and she was having, like, when her shirts were touching her, she was saying it was painful.
Yeah.
And it's still only the one side. I mean, it was probably a good month of it only being one. And so I call my aunt who's a nurse. We're talking about it. We're having dialogue. She's like, just give her Tylenol. If she's in pain and itchy, give her Tylenol. So I asked Brooklyn if she wanted Tylenol. I think we did maybe 1 or 2 doses of Tylenol. I was like, do I need to go to the emergency room? Do I call cancer? Do I like go to the pediatrician? And she was like, give it like more time. And so then over time, the other one started. She was so itchy for so long.
Yeah.
And then we started doing bras and she developed. I mean, I'm like, dude, she's got some big knockers. I like feel bad saying that, but me and Josh kind of looked at each other like, are you seeing what I'm seeing? And Josh was like, I don't want to look. And I'm like, they're like sticking out of her shirts. Like,
Yeah.
do we go up in shirt size now? Because she's tiny, like she's small. So then we're like, do we go up in shirt size and bras? And I bought her a couple bras. My grandma bought her like from Walmart, I think like one of each kind. You know how they're all different. I mean, we're women here. They're all different. So my grandma bought her a few different kinds, washed them. She tried them. She loves them. And she has been 24/7 living in bras. The only time she's not in a bra is when she's sleeping.
That shocks me with Brooklyn.
But in the book, it says that when it's trying to go out and we have a bra pushing back in, she shouldn't be wearing them all the time. And I think it's kind of like a comfort thing, you know, her nipples showing.
I always wore a bra. When I started developing, I slept in a bra. Like everything. I always had a bra on. And working at Victoria's Secret, I've like researched multiple things. Mm-hmm. And like some people say that you should wear a bra every day. Yeah. You know, to keep them where they need to be. But then other things have said that if you wear a bra every day, then your breast tissue loses its elasticity where they can't stand on their own. I mean, I don't know. And I mean, at Victoria's Secret, you have the different people who say wireless only and wires cause cancer and all that stuff too. I think what they were talking about in the book was more so like sport bras, where it's like compression. Yes. Because then that stops them kind of. So I think that we need to look into getting Brooklyn like a cup bra, to be honest. Like I feel like, because when she like, it's a hard situation kind of to talk about. So basically what I did after reading the part about that, I said to Brooklyn, I want you to not sleep with a bra on anymore. Yeah. So she's been not sleeping with it on, and I was like, are you comfortable? Are you okay with that? But yeah, a majority of her bras that she prefers are sports bras. And so like it was talking about the pushing out versus pushing in while developing. So I said to my husband, Josh, maybe we need to look at some actual like t-shirt bras. Yeah. And then not having her sleep in them. And then she agreed to not sleeping in them. Oh. Fun times. I mean, we're starting like with Peyton, like some shirts just show off a little bit different. So like talking about just getting her like the cami type bras. Yeah. And John is so uncomfortable about it. Really? And then I think his mom was there that day, and I was like, I mean, we're going. Like, this is happening. No stopping now. My first bra shopping was with my dad. Really? And his friend. So that was the most awkward time. And it does talk about in the book, like, talking to your kids and not forcing bras on them. Because we are in a new day where bras aren't the common thing anymore. A lot of people go braless. I wish I could. I can't. I am not confident or comfortable without a bra in public. But yeah, my first bra shopping was with my dad because my dad, due to how the divorce went, my mom paid for everything for my sister. My dad paid for everything for me. So they took me bra shopping, and his friend was along, and I had no idea what I was doing. They were shopping for a vacuum or something, and it was very, very awkward. I think I bought a 36C. And I probably needed a 34B. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. But yeah, so, just making it comfortable, kind of giving them options and seeing what they like. Because, not every bra is going to feel good. And I don't know if this is the next chapter or what, but in there too, it talks about like hair. And basically let them make their own choices, but give them the supplies and the knowledge.
and then let them make their choices. Because Josh and I have gone back and forth about this with Brooklyn's leg hair. Do we force her to shave it? Teach her, like, I mean, not force, but like highly encourage, recommend. They're probably walking to the parade.
Yeah.
So Josh and I had these conversations like, how do we want to approach it? And so I think reading this book came at a very good time because Brooklyn going off to intermediate school next year. I don't want her to get picked on. I don't want her to get made fun of. So then again, I brought it up to her while reading these. I was coming home every day. I think they were getting annoyed with me. I'm sending Josh all these texts, having all these conversations with Brooklyn. Basically, what she said right now is her hair makes her feel unique. And like I've said on the podcast before, I want to have good habits so my kids have like a good baseline of habits with face washing, stuff like that. But I'm not like a shave all the time girl. I'm like a shave when I got somewhere to be girl.
Yeah.
Like, and even my armpits, like, I go the whole winter without pretty much shaving them. Sorry.
That's fine.
We're getting a little ahead.
That's fine. I remember wanting to shave real young.
Yeah.
And my mom would give me like a butter knife to like pretend shave.
Really?
But then like I just had this conversation with my niece camping actually. And I was like, if you don't need to shave, don't shave.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to start that.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's been shaving her armpits.
Yeah.
And then she started shaving her legs. But back then you can go like a month in between.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, my sister and I, we have to shave every 2 days.
Yeah.
Because we shaved so often. And it just, like, all grew back. But we're hairy.
I was kind of more like Brooklyn. And my mom gave me the rules of no shaving my arms, no shaving my belly.
Yes.
So I'm going to also give my kids those rules. And I've already laid them down for Elena because I think my middle wants to start. And I don't want to share, like, too many... I try to keep it vague so you don't really know which kid I'm talking about, but kind of here it's hard to do that. My middle, I think, already wants to. And my oldest has no desire. So again, I'm going to have 3 separate freaking puberties.
It's just going to all be different. Well, Peyton, her legs, because she has so much hair in her legs, they look dirty. So I feel bad for her, but...
Brooklyn has the long, thick, dark Mexican hair. I mean, she came out like a monkey. Her whole back, everywhere. She was full of hair when she was born.
Yeah.
And I think with pushing off, like, any of the shaving talks, because she did ask probably about at Elena's age, and Josh told her she's too young. And I was like, well, maybe I should Google that. Maybe I should Pinterest that. Like, was telling her she's too young the right answer? But it just kind of, she asked, he gave that response, and it never went anywhere. So I'm kind of hoping we can do that because it was about the same age Elena is right now. But I think, Elena's just a very, very different kid from Brooklyn. And then Kenzie follows everything Elena does. Yeah. So I think we're going to try and do that same a little, telling Elena she's a little bit too young. But also keeping conversations open in case she gets insecurities, anything like that, that we allow them the tools. Because in the book it says, give them knowledge, give them tools, let them make their own choices. It's pretty much the moral of it.
Yeah. So going back up to chapter 4 was about penises and testicles, which is mainly a chapter, I guess, for me, since you have all girls. I actually learned some things about how that whole stuff works down there, which was kind of crazy to me. I also had no idea that erections happen all the time randomly when you're a boy. I don't remember, like, teenagers or in high school, boys getting random erections. I don't remember that. So it does talk about teaching your boy, like, the flip. Yeah, I didn't know that. And then, so that's going to have to be a conversation. I think we've already kind of had the conversation with Sawyer about that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I should share this, but one time he fell asleep on the couch and I was laying on the other couch and he woke up to give me a hug. Boom. He had a little erection. But we kind of had a conversation about it the next day because he was pretty embarrassed. So then just talking about that. But I didn't know, like, in school that they happen randomly. Yeah. I feel bad for boys.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I guess I don't really know how to word it because Josh has, like, talked about repositioning and stuff, but I don't, I guess, pay that much attention because I just have girls.
Yeah. So, I mean, that would be something, that would be so difficult and embarrassing. Like, more so than getting your period, I feel.
Yeah.
Because when you think of an erection, you think, like,
they're aroused.
Yeah. They, like, think something.
See, I remember
thinking
that was the reason why when I was younger.
But all those things, I mean, kind of crazy.
Yeah.
That I just don't think of. And John's not super comfy to have these conversations, so I almost have to. And Sawyer does ask a lot of questions. So this book has helped me know, like, the science of it.
Yeah.
So I can talk to Sawyer about it because those are the answers that he needs.
Yeah. See, I think Josh loves talking about it because we have, like, you know, my dad had a boy, like, Josh's family has 3 young boys. I mean, my aunt's son is a boy, and, you know, my cousin's kid is a boy. So Josh and I sometimes have, like, had conversations about, like, boy stuff, even though we don't have boys.
See, John makes jokes out of it. You know what I mean? So then I feel like Sawyer's answers aren't being, or Sawyer's questions aren't being answered necessarily because he makes it a joke. Chapter 5, periods. My notes, I mean, I got my period when I was really young, like 5th grade. Yeah. And I just remember, like, having to hide all of it. Like, I didn't want anyone to know. I had a special bag that my tampons and pads all went in. Mm-hmm. And then, like, do you remember, like, the hiding it in your
up
sleeve?
Your sleeve?
Yeah. Yeah. And so it was just, like, taboo. It was, like, gross to talk about. Just yuck. Mm-hmm. And nowadays, I think it's different.
Yeah, I like it.
I like it. It's very normalized. And girls just whip their tampon out and walk to the bathroom. I love it.
See, for the longest time, I had, like, kind of insecurities because I didn't use tampons. I only used pads.
Yeah.
But they never felt, like, I could always feel them. Like, I didn't put it in far enough. I angled it. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never been comfortable with tampons. So, actually, I, like, jokingly told my friend, like, she can teach my kids how to use tampons. So I had, like, insecurities about that, but my kids know how to put pads on. They come into the bathroom, see I bleed, see the badge, like, know the first day of Mommy's period, she's gonna have a heating pad on. Like, they know. All of them know.
And Sawyer's known.
Yeah.
Sawyer's known about periods since he was really, really young.
Yeah.
Like, I am very open and honest with my kids about everything. So, like, going back to, like, a conversation, Sawyer had a girl that was going to come over, and she had her period, and she seemed kind of, like, embarrassed about it a little bit, but, like, not going to come because of that. And Sawyer's like, dude, it's fine. Like, you got your period. Who cares? Like, if you need help, my mom's there, but I don't think you'll need help because you got it. But, like, Sawyer's like, whatever. Mm-hmm. It's not a big deal. Which I love that. I mean...
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're all women, we're all going to go at it different. Yeah. We all have our own comfortability levels. But majority of the story is just don't freak them out. Don't overshare your bad experiences. It says if you have, like, traumas, and it didn't even say traumas. If you have, like, embarrassing this, that, or the other, it says, like, write it down, share it with a friend, don't tell it to your kids to scare your kids and freak your kids out. And I think use, obviously, your discretion if you give your kids information, but I mean, like I was saying last week, Wednesday's episode, or what, I don't think it was the beginning of this episode. Yeah, last week when we were talking about traveling and stuff, I try not to project my insecurities, my anxieties onto my kids. I try to keep that, to myself, to my friends, that kind of stuff. Same for all this. Yeah. Sex and periods and all that stuff. If you had a bad experience, don't be oversharing that with your kids. And they talk about it in the book. And I love that they said that.
Yeah, me too.
Because sometimes we think sharing a bad experience gives them insight, but not
or
really.
Makes them feel better.
No.
Like that it happened to mom or dad, but in reality now they're probably just like, shoot, this could happen to me.
Yeah. So I love how they explained it, how they said it, and I think very relevant and true to say.
Absolutely. So next chapter was hair, which we've already covered on. So the chapter 7 is acne, bacne, chestney, and buttony. Which that's a new word. I dealt with acne bad. Very bad. To the point where I was seeing a dermatologist when I was like in 5th and 6th grade and had to use really expensive medicated cream that smelled like cow manure. It was awful. And I couldn't go out for recess or I had to put sunscreen on. But I was a pizza face is what they used to call me.
I call the kids that.
Rude.
Boo.
Mean. And I also have very sensitive skin. So it's very hard for me to find things that treat my skin because I get chemical burns real easy. So I had a lot to deal with when I was young with that. But I don't know. I feel like it's not going to be as difficult. Well, maybe it will be. I think kids nowadays are very into routines and washing their face.
I like in the book how she gave, there was like what, a retinoid or something else type of cleaner. And she said, use this one. After however long that doesn't work, use the other one. After however long, if that doesn't work, use both. And use like the one in the morning and the one at night. So I will definitely be referring back to this if my kids ever have any acne situations.
And I like that too. And it does take, because I've learned that with meeting with dermatologists when I was a kid, it takes time. A lot of times when you start a new face routine, you'll break out at first. And it will take like 2 weeks for that to clear up. And then you're finally then starting to treat your face. So waiting the month is really beneficial. It does talk about like our calorie dense, highly processed foods, which is not helping our skin at all.
And water intake.
Yep, water intake is huge. And it talked about like ingredient lists in food. So when you, like let's say a bag of Doritos back in the day, now you look at a bag of Doritos and there's so many different ingredients and chemicals in it. So yes, it was a bad food back then, but what I got out of it, it's a worse food now. And so children are really struggling with that.
I've seen stuff like that, even like videos on YouTube and stuff, or TikTok and stuff, that like what they had McDonald's oil in back our generation, like our childhood, versus they wanted it cheaper, they wanted it faster, like this, that, and the other. Like it's worse now. And that's what I try to explain to Josh when we talk about food stuff.
And that's how, Josh will probably say, I grew up eating McDonald's. Like, I'm fine. I'm not overweight. I don't have all these issues. But, I mean, it is different.
It's exactly what he says. So, I mean, I loved... Every single chapter had knowledge. Like, if you didn't learn something from every single chapter in this book, then, I mean, kudos to you, but you will.
I agree. And I deal with bacne and chestney. I still deal with that, especially with working out.
See, I had back acne. My mom did get me like a few facials. I think at like Ulta or wherever. My mom got me a few facials when I was younger. I don't think I struggled the way other people did.
Well, look at your skin.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about how
but I
gorgeous
did
your
have
skin is.
Literally everyone. But I did have like back. So I had one of those blackhead like whatever things. And my one friend, I remember on my trampoline, she would like pop my back.
I don't get the obsession with popping pimples. I think it's disgusting.
But I will say, I think learning, I wasn't washing my back.
So just teaching hygiene.
Yeah, I was
how to actually wash yourself.
My hair and just kind of letting it go, where now I spin my hair on the top of my head and wash my back. And I never, until I was an adult and someone made a joke somewhere, I never washed my butt cheeks.
What?
Yeah, like I just kind of went like this and like let the water run.
Huh.
And someone made a joke about their kid not washing their butt cheeks. And I was like, you touch your butt cheeks? Like, so I was an adult before I ever washed my butt cheeks.
Well,
so
good
now
thing you don't have buttony.
And I talk to my kids, we go over, where to wash, what to wash, that kind of stuff. But
yeah. And next, we're going into body odor. That's the next chapter, which my kids struggle with. I shouldn't say my kids. Peyton struggles with. Peyton's 7. Peyton has been a stinky kid since she was like 1 or 2. I thought those, like, that didn't develop until you were a certain age. But she has stinky armpits. So we struggled a long time, deciding on if we wanted to let her wear deodorant at that young of age.
Yeah.
Because deodorant is so bad for you. But it's not bad for you. What is bad for you? I don't know.
In the book, too, I like how it talks about the difference between deodorant, antiperspirant, like the different things, too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's something to look into and consider. I mean, I really recommend every single person listening to this book to go buy this, or listening to this episode to go buy this book, read it for yourself. We're just giving a glossy overview of what we took away.
Absolutely.
And we're comparing it to our life, our situations, so you don't feel so alone. The whole entire point of this podcast is sharing our real experiences so other moms don't feel alone in this crazy journey of life. So go read it. And or do your own research. But honestly, I just feel like it's just came out, so it's not from like a million years ago. And I think get it on Audible, go to Barnes & Noble.
Yeah, it's a good book.
Go wherever.
If you have teenagers or almost teenagers or young children, because things have changed so much. You go into the deodorant aisle and you have 50 different deodorants to choose from. And you have aluminum free and natural and all of this. Sometimes that natural deodorant is not going to work on that stinky kid. You just got to really find what works. And they talk about that. I had sweating issues when I was a kid. I had to wear special deodorant. So I know my kids may face the same challenges. I'm not like that anymore. I know to air out those armpits. When I was in school, I would keep them all down so they never dried out. But do what works for you. Yeah. And your child.
And don't be afraid to try new things. In here, I don't remember what chapter it is too, but I think it was the skincare one or maybe the hair one. It talks about bringing your kid to the store with you. What do your friends use? I mean, further down, I wrote down, I saw this. What do you think about this? I saw this. What do you know about this? What do your friends think about this situation? What do your friends say about situations like this? So really bringing them into it. And it really said in one of those chapters too, like bring your kid to the store with you. And let them see, I've seen this online. I've seen my friends, my teachers.
They need to have control of it and make those decisions. And more likely, if their friend is using it, they're going to be more wanting to use it as well. Yeah. Because a lot of kids refuse to wear deodorant or don't like to shower. So just bringing it back to who they hang out with and.
We have one kid that wants to shower every single day, and we have one kid who is a struggle to get her in the shower. Yeah. But in there, I really liked when they said, and I brought it up to my kids too, about bringing them to the store. And my kid said, I'll just use what you buy me. The one kid said. The other kid really wants a say, but she's going to pick out too much stuff. And so I think right now, we're going to stick to me just buying different stuff because we're not having any of the issues that they talk about in the book. But I really like it saying bring them along. Right. Bring them with them. Take their opinions into consideration. And if you buy them acne treatments, I think it was, and they're not using it, have a conversation about it. Right. Don't use shame. Don't use guilt. Right. Go buy the book.
Wonder why. Do they not know how to use it? Do they, do they need something else? Things like that. Chapter 9, growth spurts, weight gain, and curves.
In the book, it says that your kids should be gaining about 7 pounds per year, which I shared that to Brooklyn because...
You remember all that. You did awesome. I don't know, it's out of your notes. You have good memory.
Because these were things I read it, I texted it to Josh, I brought it home and talked about it. Yeah, because, I mean, later, I think it's a different chapter when they talk about, like, weight issues, but 7 pounds a year, and so I brought that up to my kids to...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I just wrote, like, BMI is bullshit. I hate BMI. I hate those numbers. But, so they talked about BMI not a basis for health. So meaning that just because someone's BMI is higher doesn't mean they're not healthy. The average person weighs more than a generation or two ago, which I kind of figured. 75% of adults in USA or in the US carry more weight as other countries, where other countries it's only 39%.
And I think, circle back, that goes to the crap we put in our food.
Yes, for sure.
So if you listen to Wednesday's episode, I got my cardigan going.
But growth spurts, do your kids have growing pains ever?
Not really. I had them so bad when I was a kid. It would keep me up at night.
Yeah.
All kinds of that. But yeah, my kids don't.
My kids have growing pains bad, where they're crying and...
We did have a little situation a couple years back. One of my kids got called fat at school. Then it was like talked about, brought up. This kind of goes into the
body image and eating disorders,
which is in chapter 14. So they have it in different chapters, but then they refer to each other kind of a little bit. So, I mean, it's hard. Again, you got to take it child by child, case by case, family by family. Try and make healthy choices for yourself to model and be a good example. Try and, I mean, the very last chapter talks about, like, friend influence. And it says, how does she word it? Basically, if you have a kid that's not showering that much, having one friend that showers that much, just... They, because of the parts in the brain, and that's where this book is so in depth, where it actually gives specifics, because even when I got my pedicure, I was talking with a friend, and I was like, my gosh, because the partying chapter talked about how when you role play at home before a kid goes to a party, they may have all the intentions to make the right choices that you're role playing, so they're not lying to you when they say they're going to make these certain choices. But that is traveling to one part of the brain, and that moves slower. And then when they hang out with their peers, kids their own age, it lights up a different section in their brain, and that moves faster.
Yep.
So it's not that they lied to you. It's not that they, you know, were planning to go to this party and do these bad things or steal or lie or, like, get into trouble, sneak out, whatever it may be. It's adults light up a different portion of the brain than peer-to-peer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I remember things all over the place.
So then the next chapter was sleep. It's pretty odd. I mean, it talks about how much each, like, kid should be sleeping and what ages.
Pretty basic.
Yep. And just really talking about sleep, exercise, balanced diet.
Your memories are made in your sleep. That was interesting to me.
Yes.
And it says to tell your kids that.
I knew that, but I've researched sleep because I don't sleep.
Yeah.
But yeah, just kind of creating the importance of sleep and making sure that they understand, because they don't want to miss out on anything. They're waking up early to go to the gym, and they're staying up late, things like that.
And, I mean, even in the book, they say, like, read this to your kids. Like, here's examples how to talk about it, or read them this chapter.
Yes.
So, love that.
And then brain development, which we've kind of talked on, right? Yep. Mood swings.
Which they talk about, you know, the normalness of it, how to kind of cope and deal with it. I mean, they give good, tangible items in the book, but that's something I feel like, do your own research, read the book, do what works for your family, do what works for your kids.
Yeah. Yep.
Do you have any big...
I didn't have any big key takeaways from that. Mental health, I did have, that's the next one, mental health. Just talking about how mental health, you know, has really escalated. You know, children have so much pressure and so much of, like, the social media and just things to stay up on. And I think a lot of kids kind of, like, revert into, you know, just staying at home and things like that. But So just under half of all teens in the U.S. have been diagnosed with mental illness or struggle at some point of their life.
Yeah.
That was a big eye-opener. It was like 49.5%. Because I don't know. I'm more aware of mental health, but then some people really are not.
See, I'm super mental health aware because of my own mental health struggles. I also feel like mental health could almost be potentially its own topic, but the book goes like good over it.
Yeah, I mean, it was just also very scary. Like from 2005, 2017, depressive episodes among 12-year-olds and 17-year-olds has increased by 52%.
Yeah.
So just be more aware, I guess, was my big takeaway.
A big portion they said, and they said this earlier in the book, but I think they reiterated it here, was you have to parent the kids that you have, not the parent. Did I say that wrong? We have to parent the kids that we have, not the kids we wish we had.
Yes.
So let's say, I mean, obviously no one wants their kid to struggle with mental health. If they are struggling, we need to deal with it and not push it off, brush it under the rug, think, and this goes back to our last book episode too, like not thinking, well, it's not a big deal, because what's a big deal to us is a big deal to us.
Right.
And what's a big deal to them, even though it's not the same thing, it's still a big deal in their world, because their world is their world. What's big to them is because of where they are in their life. Right. And I feel like we can all go back to that. I mean, to empathize or like put ourselves into our kids' shoes. Like, you know, I remember not having the pair of shorts that I wanted clean that day was like the end of the world meltdown.
For sure.
Same for our kids.
I think parents just need to realize that the world is not the same, but yet it is. Yeah. You know, like I don't know. It's harder for kids. It's harder for kids nowadays. And I just wish more parents and adults would understand that and realize that. And I think that would help a lot with mental health and getting children the help that they need.
And is the next chapter the sports chapter?
Is body image and eating disorders.
Oh, okay. When is the sports chapter?
That's next.
Because that really goes into a lot of eye-opening stuff that, again, circles back to the mental health aspect of all the pressures and all those things. Like, I was listening to that chapter and I was just like, wow. You know?
Yeah, I didn't realize how big it was. So it's youth sports over specialization is the one chapter. And she even talks about like how one child is very much like a specialized sport. But yeah.
Do you want to go through body image and eating disorders quick?
Body image and eating disorder, what I had is just, you know, kind of, they give a lot of signs of eating disorder. I'm a child who did have, well, I'm not a child anymore, but I was a child that did have an eating disorder that no one knew about. But I also knew my mom had an eating disorder. And I think because my mom told me those things, I think that's where I got my ideas from. So, like, just really not talking about your weight in a negative aspect. Like, I have struggled so much with that, about me calling myself fat, or saying I can't eat something because of blah, 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 blah. So just trying not to do that with my kids, because I do see that with my son. About, it literally says in the book, like, watch for, like, the getting healthy kick when your child says that. And my kids are constantly, is this healthy for me? Is this healthy for me? And I know that I've created that. So I just need to have healthy conversations about food and weight and things like that. Did you have anything to say on that one?
I mean, no, really just to circle back, and I don't want to like say the same things really over and over again, but it goes back to don't overshare your personal business to your children. And I have done that. I mean, Josh, also not in this book, but in other places, things whatever has said, like, don't say, you know, we had it worse than you, our parents beat us, this, that, and the other.
Right.
They say that's like psychological abuse.
Right.
We have said to our kids, we don't spank you,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
stuff like that. And it's like, goes back to asking for a do-over, goes back to asking if you can promise to reconsider.
Yeah.
Like, we've reconsidered our parenting so many times, which kind of goes back to the episode I had with Ashley. Like, I just had my kids so young. You had your kids so young. Our frontal lobe wasn't fully developed when we were making parenting decisions that will potentially affect our kids for the rest of their lives. So things that we said, like, there's a TikTok going around, our mom is just a girl. Like, you know, we were so young when we had kids, which isn't an excuse, but decisions, things we said, ways we parented, we may have changed our mind since then. And I think a lot of it is explain the why, apologize, explain how you're going to move forward, asking for a do-over, asking for forgiveness.
Yep.
Moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so youth sports, you talked about that.
Did you have anything else to add on to that? Because I was really, really, really intrigued when they were saying about not having your child, like, niche down into a sport.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that.
A lot of things that were said, I didn't really think about, but also none of my kids is that sporty into one thing.
So I think I revert back to a lot of, like, sporting things, like the over trying to make your kid to be great is back to One Tree Hill, a TV show. Because Dan, the dad of one of the guys, was so hard to the point where he ended up starting to hate it and, like, not want to do well. But that's all he lived and breathed was basketball, you know?
Okay.
And it does make them hate it. Or puts too much pressure on them to be great. So, yeah, I mean, Sawyer is a multi-athlete. And I feel like I do put some pressure on him. But not anything, like, crazy. Like, this weekend he asked to start playing lacrosse.
Really?
So he may now have another sport to tack on there.
Yeah. See, Sawyer loves it. So I love that for Sawyer. I don't see any of, like, the red flaggy things, really, with him. You know?
Yeah. I mean, to me, like, you ask him what his favorite sport is, and he'll say, whatever sport I'm playing.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't have, like, he may have, like, a little bit of a favoritism to, like, football, but he loves them all. Like, it just depends on what sport he's playing that day, and that's his favorite sport.
Yeah.
So I don't think, reading that, I didn't have any red flags for what I'm doing.
See, I liked reading it because as a person who isn't in, like, any travel sport, as a parent who doesn't have their kids in any travel sports, I was just like, these are things I never thought about before. I wonder if sports parents think about these things.
No, because...
You know what I mean?
I think a lot of sport parents are, like, wanting their children to live out what they wanted in life.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets too much. Like, when you're paying for private lessons and, like, every single day you're at the gym working hard, I mean, that's where it gets scary, I feel. So, and I think mainly, like, gymnasts, you know, probably cheer. Mm-hmm. You know, those are probably the ones that you kind of worry about.
Sorry, YouTube. I am moving around a lot. Dude, my back is hurting because in order for both of our faces to fit into the screen, we, like,
have to lean.
Get over in here. And my one side of my back is like, sit up straight.
All right, now we're getting into the scary topics. Well, I say scary. I don't know if you thought they were scary. Chapter 16 is sex, hookup, culture, and porn. On a plus note, far fewer high schoolers are doing it compared to generations ago. 30% compared to 54%. This study was taken during 2021.
COVID lockdowns.
So who's to say that it's as accurate as I like the number. This scares me. This topic scared me. I guess I didn't realize that kids watch porn so young.
Yeah, it said
Talking
10. It said 10 years old.
10 years old, you should be having your first conversation about porn to your child.
Because of internet access, because of other children, all kinds of stuff. So I had a ton of notes in here.
So, like, one story was where they just, like, wanted to look at Katy Perry naked or without a shirt.
Well, no, they said they searched Katy Perry.
Yeah.
And then shirtless ones came up, so then they started searching other celebrities shirtless.
Yeah, and then that's kind of how his experience started, but kind of addiction started, I guess, where he just kept doing it. That scares me because I'm a year late then. And the other thing about porn is, like, you want to have this conversation with your children because porn can be violent and aggressive.
And show not realistic stuff.
And not show realistic things. And I don't want my child to think that that's what sex is, you know? So I think it is very important that we do talk about porn and the unrealistics of it.
In the book,
so they understand that.
Breaks it down to, like, what is a good way to talk at this age group, a good way to talk at this age group, this age group, this age group. So I am going to be referring back to the book to have conversations.
Yes.
We've already had conversations in my house about it. I loved this book, though. I'm going to be having Josh listen back to it. We're going to write down how and what we want to say, and we're going to be in a car and just say it, you know? Yeah. For age-appropriate stuff, especially for, like, my middle and my oldest. Sometimes my youngest goes to her aunt's house and has a sleepover, so maybe it'll be like, let's drive to get ice cream. Hey, we're going to, like, you know... We're going to have a strategy, we're going to have a game plan, and we're going to continue to talk about it. And I love that the book gives what to say, how to say it.
Yes, because I assume, like, looking back, I feel like we're a very sexually positive family. Sex is a good thing. My kids, like, see John and I love on each other. You know what I mean? Like, that sounds weird. But,
kiss each other.
Like, kiss. Or John
grabs butts.
Yeah. And, like, we're affectionate. We love each other. And, like, they don't think it's gross, you know? Like, they understand. And I want to be that like... I don't know how to say this without, like, sounding bad. But, like, sex is not taboo to me. Like, if my teenager came to me and said that they were ready, I'm not gonna, like, freak out.
Shame and guilt.
Like, shame and guilt. Yeah. It is a thing. It is love. It is a part of life. I don't know. Do you get what I'm saying? Without, like, saying bad things.
Josh and I started...
It's a difficult topic.
Because
everyone's so different.
Yeah. Exactly. That's where it matters, family to family, kid to kid. Josh and I had conversations probably about maybe 2 years ago, and I've had conversations with one of my other friends on some walks.
Yeah.
And I said my number one thing that I want to tell my kids is it can feel good for you. Right. You don't need it to only have your man that you're with, if you're with a man even, because that's
they talk about this in the book.
So in the book, I love the way they lay it out. I'm going to be re-listening. I'm going to be writing stuff down. I'm going to be having Josh for sure listen. But there was already about 2 years ago, Josh and I decided we're not going to have shame. We're not going to have guilt towards it. Also, we said we want our girls to know it doesn't have to be just about the guy. We weren't sure how we were going to say it, so thank God I read this book, you know? Yeah. But in the book, it literally said that you can, I think how it said was, say to your kids, like, isn't it great that there's a part on a woman's body that the only goal it has is to feel good? Mm-hmm. And when it's talking about, like, the clit, and I was like, cool, that's, like, a good way to bring it up. So, not to, like, get too graphic, too into details, anything, but, like, I've had, like, shame and guilt and stuff, you know, in the past, and Josh and I have, like, had multiple conversations about it, And so I love that this book is giving me words to say to my kids, because I already knew 2 years ago that I wanted my kids' number one thing to know that it isn't just about the other person
because
that you're
that's
with.
what, like, we were taught. Like,
oh yeah,
I mean, like,
not to be too awkward, too
right. That's why I'm like struggling with this conversation because it is awkward. I mean, you don't know what to say and what not to say. But I mean, I was always told that sex hurt for a woman, you know, and maybe that was my parents, people trying to scare me. And then my mom is also a very sexual person. So, like, then I was taught that, no, sex is great and, you know, it feels good and it should feel good. And, like, teaching that, like, because what you do watch or look at is kind of scary.
So other things I wrote down too was like, if your kid asks a question, you can say, thank you for asking, but I'm not going to share that. And I was like, good.
Yes.
We don't need to share everything. And I love that the book says we don't need to share everything.
Right.
Another thing was like the road trip or walking. Another thing was it's not one talk, it's multiple talk. So those are some things I've already said kind of now, I feel like. But this whole book is intertwined.
Well, yeah, and things,
So
yeah, and it does, it'll say like reference chapter or go back to this chapter. But obviously more questions are going to come up as our kids are developing and experiencing life. So there's going to be multiple topics all the time. One really thing that I liked about this chapter too was teaching consent often and early. And that doesn't have to be a sexual topic. You know, you can consent to, can I have a bite of your sandwich? Like things like that, starting that consent to really drill it in their head, I guess.
And we already don't force hugs. We already, when my kids were younger, I would say, do you want mommy to change your diaper or do you want daddy to change your diaper? And so kind of in the back of my mind, I feel like that was like my way of telling them, like, you have choices in your body.
Yeah.
So yeah, Josh and I have just had like so many conversations about it. Another thing, I think it was in this chapter, I'm not exactly sure, was define terms. Don't just assume that they know.
Oh yeah, I have that in here too. Yeah.
So it talks to about
like it was when you were talking about porn. So if you're talking to them about porn, if you use the word sex, don't assume they know what sex is. Ask them if they know what that word means.
And that goes into how they do these studies too. Because she was saying when they have questionnaires, they don't define.
They're very generic. I wrote that over here too. They're very generic and vague, where they just kind of ask, like, have you had sexual contact?
And every kid can be taking that, and then it goes over the bases and all these different things. So I think really, I mean, I almost might go and buy the book too, just so I can highlight and sticky note. It's a great book. Get the book.
It is a great book. One of my other things that I get the ick from a lot is not to sexualize your kids, your young kids. Like, it drives me nuts when people talk about, like, little 3-year-olds having crushes and, or they only pick on you because they like you. Like, those types of things, like, you're sexualizing your children.
And this brings it back in my brain. A lot of what was talked about is my VS family. Literally, when I signed Brooklyn up for cheer, I reached out to one of the girls.
Oh, about sport bras?
Yeah, have I told you this before?
Yeah.
So there was one girl and I was like, hey, I don't know how to navigate this. Can you help me? Josh is like, if all the other kids are wearing it, let them wear it. But I'm like, okay, if all the kids are jumping off a bridge, I don't want my kid to jump off a bridge. So
like when our girls are at cheer, they're normally just in a sport bra and a pair of shorts.
Yes. So Brooklyn is my oldest, and she was like 4 years old when she started. Yeah. And she started dance at like 3 years old. So she had already done a year of dance. So maybe, yeah, because she was only in 4K. So she started dance at 3. They wear a leotard and a skirt.
Yep.
Then with cheer, Josh and I had to navigate. I didn't want my family's influence on making this decision. Josh was just basically like, well, if everyone else that's what they're wearing, let's follow suit. And I was like, let's make an informed decision. I reached out to this girl from Victoria's Secret and I was like, can you help me? What are your thoughts? Give me your opinions, please. And she did. Freaking love her. Literally so much.
I didn't struggle with me deciding to let Peyton wear sport bras.
Yeah.
Did my family say stuff to me? Yes. Especially, and even like my niece. Ugh, you let her wear just a sport bra? Ugh, gross. Whatever. But it's a sport bra.
For sports.
Yeah, so I didn't struggle with that, but that probably has a lot to do with me working at Victoria's Secret and things like that. I mean, my little sister, when she was in like school, she was getting picked on for wearing like leggings with underwear and having panty lines. So I bought her thongs.
Yeah.
When she was probably like 12. I don't even remember, but I didn't even think about it. Like, it's just underwear, people. Yeah. Like, who cares?
So, I love my VS girls. I love you so much. Because really, like, I've had so many conversations that just, and this brought that up to me. So, you said you were freaked out by the sex hookup culture and porn. I was so freaked out. Did I, like, drop out of school and never went to health class? No, I went to health class. Like, what the heck? For the contraception, STIs, and STDs. When they're explaining the different okay, so I thought, for one, STIs and STDs were interchangeable. They're two different things.
Yeah.
Okay? When they're explaining each one and its symptoms and it's this and it's that, I was freaked out. I was like...
Were you freaked out about, like, learning about it, or freaked out about having the conversations with your kids?
I never used protection with any of my partners.
Well,
I was freaked out.
Well, you're fucking lucky.
So I have been tested, but it wasn't back then when I was switching through partners.
I mean, yeah.
So
I knew about all that. That was like,
I was literally thinking in my head, did I skip school that day? I know I was in health class. I know they put a picture of warts up there. I literally must have been talking with a friend, texting. It went in one ear and out the other.
Oh, that's funny.
That chapter freaked me the frick out, man.
Yeah.
So we're definitely going to be having these conversations at home. They refer it to a different country. What country do they refer it to? Okay. Was it like Australia or something? They compare the U.S. statistics to somewhere else and how they do their sex ed versus how we do our sex ed. So...
Yeah. I can't think.
So basically, I mean, we're already at like an hour and 10 minutes. So we can kind of quickly brief it over. My major takeaways were I'm going to do a lot of this educating at home with my kids. And not just let the school do the teaching.
No, you can't, because they feel uncomfortable in those settings. Like, I asked Sawyer what he learned in his, because he just had it like a few weeks ago.
So did Brooklyn.
And he doesn't really remember. And he said, Mom, I tried real hard not to laugh, but everyone else is laughing. Mm-hmm. And so in that setting, they're not truly thinking about what they are learning.
It also talks about how, what was it, like 20 years ago when the sex ed curriculum was like made, we had Roe v. Wade then. So it was STD over pregnancy prevention. But the world that we're living in nowadays, we need to go pregnancy prevention, then STD. Both change your life forever. But in a world where we don't have access. So I love this chapter. I'll be referring to it. Josh will be reading it. I will be buying the book and highlighting from it.
Yeah.
I was much more freaked out by that chapter than the other chapter.
I think I was more freaked, like, just because of all the conversations I need to have.
Yes.
Chapter 18 was sexual orientation.
Boom, we got that. We are both accepting families.
Very much so.
There's good information in the book. Oh, it brings it back to mental health.
Yeah, And my kids are lucky to have some people in our family that can help with, teaching and helping with that.
And answering questions.
And chapter 19, gender identity, same thing.
Boom. We're good. We're golden.
Yep.
We're great.
Chapter 20 is friendships and peer influence.
My major takeaway
We
from
talked about that quite a bit. I mean, just talking to your friends and finding out what their friends are doing.
And it says you only need one friend. So it brings up social media, a lot of that stuff. I feel like it's kind of common sense, kind of a no-brainer. But I really liked that it said you don't need a friend group. You only need one solid friend. And that was good to hear. Because sometimes I get a little bit insecure about not having a friend group, hoping that my kids are in a friend group. And then I'm like, is there more drama in a friend group? Like, how much coordinating has to be done in a friend group around people's sports schedules to have the kids get together? Because, the moms are the ones that do the coordinating. So it was a good chapter. I liked it.
Yeah.
It also says not to, don't project, again, what you want out of their friendships and, being kindergarten besties for forever and ever and ever. Don't project that onto your kids. Let your kids make their own decisions. Just give guidance. I mean, that's our job as a parent.
I struggle a little bit with that. Because I feel like I want my kids to be friends with certain people. Yeah. And they're not. Sawyer makes friends with everybody. But he tends to, lately, just some very different oddball kids, which is fine. But yeah, I loved this book.
Couldn't recommend it enough. If you have a kid 4 or 5 years old or older, buy the book. Read the book. You're going to learn some stuff.
Yeah, I think I honestly, want to read it again.
Yeah, for sure.
And I will, like I said, read some chapters with Sawyer and with Peyton.
For sure.
And it'll bring up great topics and conversation. And then just being so open. That's my biggest thing. Yeah, don't be scared to have the conversations.
To have a do-over.
And if they're not ready to have these conversations, circling back and just being open so that they feel comfortable talking to me about anything and everything.
Yep. You can always change, you can always reconsider, change your mind, just explain why.
Yeah.
Don't assume that they know. Always give definitions.
Yep.
Don't overshare your personal experiences. You can always ask for a do-over.
Yep.
Love this book.
Yeah.
Love you. Have a great week. We'll talk to you Wednesday. Don't forget to go give us some love on Instagram. Give us some love on YouTube. We're always looking for feedback.
Yes, we are.
Love you.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.